NextGen Knowledge-Based Model version 8.3.11 provides your practice with the option to use Parity Auto-calculation, and you'll learn how to work with this feature here. When Parity Auto-calculation is enabled, the system will calculate and update a patient's parity in NextGen Ambulatory EHR when historical pregnancy information is entered or when a current pregnancy is ended. Parity can be viewed and updated on the OBGYN synopsis or pregnancy outcomes templates, and each template will display messages explaining the auto-calculation status. For example, when auto-calculation is not active, this is how the pregnancy history section of the OBGYN synopsis displays. When auto-calculation is active and the patient's documented information is in sync with the calculated parity, this message displays. Although the system will calculate the outcome details, Parity Auto-calculation will work even if this data is absent or out of sync. The multiple births field is never auto-calculated and requires manual entry. When Parity Auto-calculation is initially enabled, you may encounter situations where the manually documented parity data isn't equivalent to the history documented in the pregnancy history grid. If the documented parity doesn't equal the system-calculated parity, this alert displays and the disparate fields are highlighted in yellow. Once the information in the parity section has been reconciled, the green Parity Auto-calculation message will display and the system will calculate the data. We'll look at the steps for correcting parity later in the lesson, but first, let's look at the messages on the Pregnancy Outcomes template. This message displays at the top of the Pregnancy Outcomes template when Parity Auto-calculation is turned off. As on the OBGYN synopsis, when auto-calculation is enabled and parity data is in sync, the auto-calculation message displays here. And when parity data is disparate, this alert displays and the disparate field or fields are highlighted in yellow. We'll log on to NextGen Ambulatory EHR, where you'll learn how to work with Parity Auto-calculation. We are logged on to EHR with a gynecology office visit encounter open for a new patient, Shannon Dudley. We'll open the OBGYN synopsis and document her pregnancy history. Auto-calculation is turned on, and since no parity or pregnancy history information has been documented, the grid and calculated parity are in sync. You can quickly add parity data by manually typing in the fields. Shannon reports 2 full-term pregnancies, so we'll enter 2 in the full-term field. The system automatically added 2 full-term pregnancies to the pregnancy history grid, keeping the parity in sync. A message displays to alert you that outcome details haven't been entered, with instructions for how to enter this information. However, Parity Auto-calculation is not impacted if the details haven't been entered. Let's move to the Pregnancy Outcomes template to enter pregnancy details for Shannon. You can add pregnancy history on the Detailed Entry Edit panel to update parity. In addition to the 2 full-term pregnancies that we already added, Shannon reported that her first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. I'll document the details. The field names that display in red text are required fields. Now that this information has been entered, we'll add it to the grid. The pregnancy displays on the grid and parity has been updated. Now we'll add the details for the full-term pregnancies. To get started, select the pregnancy on the grid. Historic entry is selected by default since we added the item as a parity quick entry. You would only select End Current Pregnancy when the patient has an active pregnancy open in NextGen Ambulatory EHR and has delivered. I'll add the details for this pregnancy. The details have been added. Note that in addition to status at birth, you can also document whether the child is currently living or deceased. This change was made to align with the American Congress of Obstetricians and Gynecologists' current definition of living as the number of living children at the current time, and the system will calculate the data in the outcome details. We'll save by clicking Update. Parity has not changed because the full-term pregnancy was already included there. However, the outcome details have been automatically calculated and display. I'll go ahead and add the details for the other pregnancy. When asked about this delivery, Shannon reported that she delivered at 36 weeks, so I changed the selection here to premature. We'll save the details. Parity has been updated to show one full-term and one premature delivery. Outcome details have also been updated. We'll scroll down to Save and Close. And the data documented on the Pregnancy Outcomes template displays here. Now that you've seen how auto-calculation works when entering new data, let's look at how to correct disparate information. We've created a gynecology office visit encounter for Brenda Berry, an existing patient, and we'll open the OBGYN synopsis. Brenda's parity and pregnancy history that were documented before auto-calculation was activated are not in sync. Reconcile the existing data to enable parity auto-calculation before adding more pregnancy history. There are 2 full-term pregnancies documented on the pregnancy history grid and only 1 in the parity full-term field. We'll change the full-term entry to 2. Parity is in sync and auto-calculation is enabled. However, the manually documented outcome details don't match the pregnancy grid. Now that auto-calculation is enabled, this alert displays. I'll correct the 2 highlighted fields. Brenda's parity and outcome details are in sync with the pregnancy history data. We'll move to another patient's EHR chart to see how multiple births are handled by parity auto-calculation. I've navigated to the Pregnancy Outcomes template in a document pregnancy outcome encounter for June Marsh, an obstetrical patient who delivered twins. We'll collapse the detailed entry and edit panel so we can view the quick entry and edit panel along with the pregnancy history grid. Parity auto-calculation has recently been enabled and the data is out of sync. We'll correct the parity data before documenting her delivery information. The provider's note indicates that June had 1 spontaneous abortion in 2012 and 1 prior full-term delivery. We'll correct the full-term entry and the NSVD field. All parity and outcome information is now in sync. Although there are 2 spontaneous abortion entries on the grid, they're both marked as pregnancy number 2, so parity is not impacted. We'll remove the entry without the date. Now we'll document the details for the delivery of June's twins using the detailed entry and edit panel. The system uses the following rules when calculating parity and outcome details for multiple births. Parity is automatically calculated based on the most advanced fetal outcome. So if 1 infant is born prematurely and 1 at term, the system will add 1 full-term pregnancy to parity. Abortions and ectopic pregnancies won't contribute to parity if there's also a potentially viable delivery with a multiple gestation and if you document them as historical entries when the outcome is recorded at the end of the pregnancy. You can add a comment to explain the circumstances. For outcome details, if all babies are delivered vaginally, the system will calculate 1 NSVD, and if all are born by C-section, the system will calculate 1 C-section. When 1 or more babies are born vaginally and 1 or more are born by C-section, the system will calculate 1 NSVD and 1 C-section. We'll add the information for baby A, starting by selecting End Current Pregnancy. Use the same pregnancy number for each delivery from the multiple pregnancy. And select the birth order. I'll add the details for baby A's delivery. Baby A was born prematurely via vaginal delivery. Let's save the documentation to the grid. June has delivered both babies and will confirm that we want to change her status to no longer pregnant. Parity has been updated to include 1 premature birth, and in outcome details, NSVD has been incremented by 1 to equal 2 vaginal deliveries. I'll go ahead and add the details for baby B. Baby B was also born at 26 weeks gestation, but delivered by C-section. We'll add this delivery to the grid. The C-section has been added to the outcome details, but the parity data hasn't changed. Since all 3 children that were born alive are currently alive, the count for living now is 3. June was initially pregnant with triplets, but had a spontaneous abortion of the 3rd fetus at 7 weeks. Whether you're manually or auto-calculating parity, use the same pregnancy number for each outcome of a multiple gestation and, if manually calculating parity, increment parity by 1 for the most advanced fetal outcome. I'll enter the information about the spontaneous abortion, again using 3 as the pregnancy number. And save by clicking Add to Grid. Since all 3 outcomes were documented under the same pregnancy number, auto-calculation did not add to either gravidity or parity. The multiple births field must be manually updated. We'll do that now. We've entered all outcome data for June's pregnancy, and the system auto-calculated her parity. We'll scroll down the template, and the documentation that we entered displays on the pregnancy history grid. Let's save and close, and then open the OBGYN synopsis. June's parity and outcome details data is in sync with the pregnancy history that displays on the grid here. As you've seen, the new parity auto-calculation feature makes it easier to calculate and view an accurate count of patient parity.